AP Lit, and we're looking at the By the way, I was talking to Dr. Betzel. He's actually starting Hemingway today. A year from now, who knows what's going to be going on a year from now, but a year from now you'll be seniors, you may be starting Hemingway.
Was this Ernest Hemingway?
Ernest Hemingway. What's the name of the book? Fair Old Arms. Anyway, it's that's what you'll be doing with him, and he was introducing Hemingway. And anyway, this is Hemingway. They had some questions at the bottom. We'll actually touch on those, but I'd like to get, this is helpful. We'll do this, try to do this about once a week with prose or poetry. Tell me two things, or one thing, major thing that you found, Layla. Tell me one thing you found about the syntax, the diction.
There's a lot of repetition of the word road.
Really? R-O-A-D, did you say? Huh. How many times? I didn't notice that. How many times? I see 2 times right off the top.
I have 7.
Really? Now I see it. Beside the road, scattered over the road. Well, I mean, at the very least, what conclusion can you draw about the road? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how, but the battle took place on and around the road, and that's a very good point. I mean, sometimes just something that's obvious to you was not obvious maybe to the rest of us, and that's great. Something else. Yes, Madeline.
It has long sentences that are declarative.
Okay. What do long sentences in general tend to, what do they tend to achieve or create? Remember we talked about there's medium long and then there's long. Both of them tend to create what?
Like a thoughtful, or like
Thoughtful, deliberate, even if it's really long, meditative. What did you notice about this long sentence? Are you talking about the one in the second paragraph?
I counted all of them were like more than 30 words at least, but particularly the second paragraph.
It's one sentence, isn't it?
The third paragraph, that's one sentence.
Right. That's a significant thing to note. We already says it. Well, what is it meditating on? What does it emphasize? Do you know, Caroline?
It's what supposedly happened during the battle, and it's kind of like you can see what probably happened based off how everything is fallen.
And who can see it? Because we can, but whose perspective do we get here? Nick Adams. By the way, he was a recurring character in many of Hemingway's short stories. So you get this Nick Adams. What seems to be Nick Adams' major interest in this battle scene? Going back to that one sentence, what seems to be the focus of that one sentence? What are all those details have in common? Yes.
Yeah, like weapons.
And they're not people. You notice the people, the bodies, they only mentioned once or twice in that short sentence. The shortest sentence, or the middle paragraph, it's only mentioned a couple of times. Everything else is about the equipment and the weapons. What conclusion can you draw from that, Claire?
That it's not focused on the people?
And it is focused on the equipment. What conclusion can you draw about this Nick Adams and about his interests?
He doesn't value human life.
Well, you wouldn't think any of these people would you? It's war, you know. You're supposed to mow down as many of them as you can. But the passage seems to support that, doesn't it? That where are the people? No mention of the people. What could be Nick Adams? Why would Nick Adams be interested in those things? Yeah.
maybe he's like an engineer.
Maybe that's his job. Maybe he's a quartermaster. Maybe that's. By the way, how does the first sentence tells you what happened in the battle? Of course, everything does. How does he know that? He wasn't there, right? He just showed up. Battle's over, and yet he tells us the attack had gone across the field, been held up by machine gun fire from the sunken road and from the group of farmhouses, encountered no resistance, and reached the bank of the river. How does he know all that? He wasn't there to see it. How does he know that? What do you think, Patty? How does he know that's how the battle proceeded?
Because the way things are scattered.
Right. And what does that tell you? That without being there, he didn't have to be there. He can just look at the equipment and the placement of things. He can draw those conclusions. What does that tell you about him?
So does it tell about him?
Yeah, about the narrator, or well, his perspective.
He knows everything is very
But how is he able to draw that conclusion from those details?
because he really like looked into everything and saw where everything.
And you think this is the first time he's been in a battle? I don't think so. I think this guy knows what he's talking about because he's seen it before. And so that tells you things that he doesn't have to come right out and tell you that this guy's a veteran. How about, Gwen, give me something else. By the way, we talked about syntax, the long sentence, really, really long sentence.
I thought, like, didn't we talk about how long is it, like, being more well-educated? Or like,
We said that it's meditative or it's what's the word you used?
Thoughtful.
Thoughtful, yeah. You know, the person is putting thought into it. It's not fast, quick action, which is shorter sentences.
I guess I thought long sentences were well-educated, but the low diction kind of contradicted it a little bit.
Where's the low diction?
Like like no resistance, like, well, I guess it was more the type where it just like is straight to the point, like, is that essentially the same?
But I think you're onto something. Is there elevated diction here? Not really. So it's kind of neutral. What does that tell? That you can draw some conclusions of that. What conclusion? That it's just sort of normal, neutral diction. Nothing fancy, no big, what is that? Irrefragable. They use the word, Hawthorne used irrefragable. Hemingway would never use irrefragable. But what does that tell you about that, about the passage?
It's either like not, well, I guess it's not meant to be, because like people in the war, they aren't like super.
Very good, very good. That's exactly right. That's a conclusion you can draw from the, and Hemingway, by the way, was I don't think he fought, but he was in the medical corps in World War I. So he was an ordinary guy, wasn't a general. What other conclusions? Yeah.
There was like a lot of accidentin.
Which means ascendaton, what does that mean?
That's no conjunctions.
Yeah, so what does that tend to do?
So it's like, that like helps the long sentences, cause like.
How does it help it?
Because the sentence keeps going on and on and on, but like, you're talking.
But it's not going and, yeah, so you don't have those words. So can you draw any conclusion from that? And Madeline pointed out that the details in that last paragraph, we pointed out what kind of details. What's another word to describe that? We made a connection with like 2,000 years ago with a device that was used by writers 2,000 years ago, seems to be used here. Essentially, what is that last paragraph? It's what is it, kind of? Yeah.
It's the big list.
It's a list. And what writers tend to use lists, and what do lists contribute to the effect of the passage? Hey.
It's like the epic poets. And they
Yes.
Show the, like size.
Jonathan was listening to you earlier. Keep going.
It shows like the size and like immensity of something.
Very good. And just take it one step. What is he trying to say about the size of what, or the immensity of what here?
It's like a big battle.
Very good. All those things are conclusions you can draw from a list, a very long list. And was there war 2,000 years ago? You know, it sort of connects this war with those wars, this writer with those writers. Very good. Okay, so any other details? I wanna get to the there's another another thing about sentences. Daniel, what can you add? Anything before I'll add a couple of things.
I said that like the second sentence could be like, inverted order of a sentence, so like you could invert the order and it still makes sense.
Well, let's look at that second sentence. I don't expect you in, one lesson to know loose and periodic, but given what I told you yesterday, if you can even remember the definitions, is that not second sentence, second paragraph, that's the one I'm thinking about. Which one are you talking about? The second sentence of the paper, of the passage, coming along the road?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go back to that one. What kind of sentence is that? Remember I told you about loose and periodic? Yeah. Very good. You were listening too. Thank you. So tell me the effect of that periodic sentence. Coming along the road on a bicycle, getting ready to push the machine when the surface of the road became too broken, comma, and here's the main clause of the sentence. Nick Adams saw what had happened. But that's at the end. What effect do you get from putting the other details at the beginning?
You get a more detailed sentence and you don't know what they're saying until the very end.
Right, and it says, the emphasis is on his coming, it's not on who he is. He's the only name in the passage, and even in this sentence, that his name comes at the end. Like, what can we draw about, again, with piling up the evidence, what is the effect of the passage? Who and what is not very important here? Who is not very important here? If Nick Adams comes at the end of the sentence and only one name is mentioned in the entire passage. What are we trying to say here? Claire, if only one name is mentioned, there are thousands or hundreds, probably not thousands, hundreds of bodies, one name is mentioned, and he comes at the end of a paragraph, not at the beginning. What's not important here?
I would say that like what the army, what they were saying was important.
So human life, if you know anything about World War One, waves of people crossing, bare land into the face of machine guns. It's been said that in World War One they used 20th century equipment or technology, machine guns, gas, airplanes, tanks. They were using 20th century technology and 19th century tactics, like Napoleon and Longstreet at Gettysburg. 15,000 men marching a mile into the face of muskets. What if they'd been marching into the face of machine guns? The carnage would be even greater, and that's what World War I. Did you know millions of soldiers died? That's a kind of a forgotten war. The emphasis here is not on those millions, it's on the multiple millions of equipment that's sitting here. Thank you. Good job about that. Look at the first sentence. The first sentence is, well, you tell me. The attack had gone across the road, been held up by machine gun fire from the sunken road, and from the group of houses encountered no resistance in the town and reached the bank of the river. Loose or periodic? Is the subject at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence, like the Nick Adams sentence? John, what do you think? Where is the subject of the sentence? It is loose. The attack is the subject of the sentence. The second sentence we pointed out is periodic, and the third sentence, notice that first sentence has polysyndeton. Again, this is just an exercise. We're just trying to pull out as many things as we can find. So the word "and" is used. What do you think that suggests? Held up by machine gun fire, and the group of farmhouses, and reached the bank of the river. What does the polysyndeton contribute to that? What about your brother said, I went here, and then we did this, and then this happened, and then what does that tend to produce? Sam, what does that tend to produce? Little kid is what? But what is it? What's the effect of it? What? Yes, but what's the effect of it? Action, breathless action, and you never get a chance to take a breath. That's appropriate for this. There are other things, we can't wring it dry, but good exercise, we'll try to do it regularly. That's what you need to be able to do quickly on the AP exam. You know, and look at the notes that you have. Look at all the things you could say about it. That's what they're looking for. Have a great weekend.